Welcome, everyone. It's MLB Now. We are the show for the thinking fan, live in Cooperstown, New York, at the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum. The writer's ballot announcement a little after 6 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. We join you inside the plaque gallery for the next 2 hours. Interviews, analysis, comparative analysis for Hall of Famers. First year on the ballot for Ichiro, also CC Sabathia, King Felix Hernandez, Billy Wagner, 5 votes shy last year. He could be inducted. We could be looking at a pretty big class today. I got a pretty big class right here. Jayson Stark is with me, Joel Sherman, JP Morosi. Guys, great having you back here at the Plaque Gallery.
Yeah, I got to say, it's one of my favorite days of the year. And I think of this group, we would all agree, I'm probably the biggest cynic. And that there is something about being here on Election Day that raises everything, that you really do feel the day.
That calms the inner cynic and the outer cynic. He has an outer cynic as well. Let's take a look at the ballot tracking. And again, we're getting good indications for a large class. Start at the top. Jason, 100% of every single vote for Ichiro. What is surprising to me, and we'll examine, is CC Sabathia way up at 93%, getting so much support. Billy Wagner was at, 73.8% last year. He is now tracking at 85. Carlos Beltran, year 3 on the ballot. Again, his handiwork in the sign-stealing scandal kept him kind of artificially low, but now he's surging up above the 75% required for induction. And Andruw Jones, who I thought might have a shot at getting in, Jones was at 61%, is now up at 72.5%. Again, the vote totals come up. Traditionally, Jason, though, they usually come down a bit. How do you read this?
Yeah, you know, the biggest question is whether Ichiro will be unanimous. That's certainly in play.
That means something to you?
It does to me.
Okay, because that means, I hate to derail, but like right away, I know that's not the question. It means nothing to me, JP?
It does mean something to me, and I think to a lot of our viewers in Japan. I got a text a short time ago, Kodai Kawamura, one of my colleagues over there, who said, if Ichiro is unanimous, it will take what is already an historic day in Japanese baseball history and bump it up another octave to be in the inner sanctum, BK, of the inner sanctum for the first ever Japanese player.
But it shouldn't be that way. Look, I understand. No, you're right. So it'll be seen as a sign of respect for Ichiro. Again, there's Derek Jeter. There was one guy who didn't vote for him. Certainly in the first classes, Honus Wagner didn't get a vote. I mean, it was never a thing. Now, I understand what you're saying with Japanese fans, but it's a thing?
It's not as big a thing to me, because what I hate is if he got all but 1 or 2 votes, we'll begin a manhunt for who didn't vote for him, instead of celebrating that it's hard to get people to agree what to eat to dinner, and 99.8% of people would have voted for him. And so, I would rather, bathe in that. Remember that there's been bad votes through the years. Like, Willie Mays wasn't unanimous. Hank Aaron wasn't unanimous.
Right, and even it doesn't mean it's a bad vote. And, of course, I derailed this immediately. I just couldn't let it go. I couldn't let Jason speak for 30 seconds. A Hall of Fame honoree sitting right here. But I just brought it up because, again, it's not a sign of disrespect. And couldn't you, I know when I do my mythical ballot, if I want to throw a vote to Dustin Pedroia to keep him above the 5%, he's year 1, and a lot of people think he's worthy. At the very least, he's a good candidate. He was a winning player. I might have to hold back a vote from a guy who I'm more certain to get in. So I could do, or there could be a writer out there doing a little strategy and keeping a vote from Ichiro. That's no disrespect, but trying to throw a vote to maybe it's King Felix, maybe it's Troy Tulowitzki, Ben Zobrist, or Dustin Pedroia.
Yeah, no, we think that's probably why Derek Jeter was not unanimous, and it's probably why Ken Griffey Jr. was not unanimous. They both were over 99%. We never found out if that was why. I know me personally, I would never withhold a vote from someone like Ichiro.
It's 10, but you have 10, and you know if you don't have 5%, Jason, you fall off. So what if Dustin Pedroia is gone and he's gone forever?
The fact that no position player has ever been unanimous is the dumbest tradition in the history of sports. Let's get past it.
But
and if not him, who?
But you go 10 deep, right?
I go 10 deep.
All right, so you go 10 deep. So couldn't you see, is there an 11th guy that, I'd like to throw him a vote? And if you don't, maybe next year he's not around to throw a vote to.
Yeah, I've been through this in other years. I'm a big Hall voter, and it's important to me to keep guys on the ballot. I do vote that way. I'm very conscious now of ballot management since we have this 10-player limit. But when we're talking about the very best player on the ballot, I am not withholding a vote from that guy. That's just dumb.
Okay, you're a big Hall guy.
I am.
You go 10 deep?
I go 10 deep.
So do you get into the strategy of it, or do you say, no, the guys I believe in at the top, they have to stay, and if we lose too low, or we lose Pedroia, we lose him?
If you were to strategize, BK, it would be for someone in the middle part of the ballot, hypothetically, an Utley or a Rollins, both of whom I voted for. But it's that type of player who you know is certainly above the 5%, but is not imminently going to get elected.
If you're going to 30%.
Exactly. Where you're safe and you know that you'll have a chance to vote for him the next year. But in general, BK, I believe this, and I think Jason said it right.
Unless we have some mountain man living in a cave voting, they know that if they withhold the vote from Suzuki, there's a very good chance that that is a vote that's keeping him from being unanimous.
You don't think there's writers that aren't following the ballot tracker? I think there are. I don't think you have to be in a cave somewhere. by the way, John, you were saying...
if you're
John was about to say, make a point.
If you're not aware that you have a shot at keeping him unanimous, you should lose your vote.
All right, agreed. But I'm saying there's probably some writers.
There's got to be at least that aware.
There's some writers, and maybe, I don't want to stereotype, but maybe there's older writers that aren't online all the time and following the ballot track.
Correct.
Maybe don't know that this is a sign of disrespect if you don't give every single vote.
Those people really love 3,000 hits, so they're going to vote for
Yes, they do.
That's true.
By the way, these are the guys you used to hang out with, not me. They're your friends.
I still hang out with
Yeah, you do. All right, John, go ahead.
I think at the bottom part of the ballot, BK, and I did, and we'll get more into my ballot later with names like Kinsler and McCann. There are players that I will support because I want them to be above that 5%.
Right.
But even in these times when we all agonize over the last few spots on our ballot, we have plenty of space, BK, with 10 players to vote for those players that you want to make sure get above the 5% and still do your job of putting in with as high a total as you can those who truly deserve the...
Well, I know, I don't know about that, JP. Again, if you go deep, and you do, you go deep and you get other guys that are... And I don't vote shame anymore. Used to vote shame. I don't vote shame anymore because I put it this way. Someone should believe in player X. Like Jay Jaffe's going to be with us later, and he does deep study on this. He's giving Russell Martin and Brian McCann a vote, right? So he went a little deeper than you. But and even if I disagree with that, I'm thinking somebody should believe in Brian McCann, right? Somebody should make the case for Ian Kinsler, right? So I think you can go 10, 11 deep, and that might be withholding a vote from the guy who is at number 1 and 100%. All right, let's go a little deeper into the ballot then. So Andrew Jones, Carlos Beltran. What's your prediction? What are we thinking? What are your brethren saying?
Well, it's interesting that Andrew Jones was ahead of Carlos Beltran in the voting last year, and now we're seeing this surge for Beltran.
The amazing Ichiro.
With his first hit in the major leagues. Ichiro, it gets better every time the guy moves. Holy smoke, a laser beam strike. All-time hit king number 258.
Rare inside the park home run in an all-star game.
He's a superstar back in Japan as he is here in the United States.
Ichiro's giving them what they wanted to see.
He's climbed the mountain at 3,000.
And now he has paved his own path to Cooperstown.
Major League Baseball has always had a yearning to expand internationally, as you can see from this exhibit in the Hall of Fame. Playing baseball in front of the pyramids in Egypt in 1888. There are 17 ball players who have been inducted into this Hall of Fame that were born outside of the United States. None from the country of Japan until tonight. Let's give Ichiro some Cooperstown justice. The first thing to realize is that Ichiro came to the United States for his age 27 season. He was already a 7-time batting champ and 3-time MVP in Japan. To say the odds were against him being a Hall of Famer in the United States is a vast understatement. He was already well into his prime as a ball player, and there were many who questioned if a Japanese position player could have success in the United States. And yet, in year 1, he hit .350, leading off for a club that won a mind-blowing 116 games. In 2004, he hit .372, a batting average that hasn't been topped since. So here's what Ichiro did for his first 10 Major League Baseball seasons. These are his averages. 159 games a year, 734 plate appearances leading off. This is an Iron Man. 224 hits, averaging 224 hits a year. A .331 batting average with 38 steals per year. Now, you could be thinking he's not a power hitter. And yeah, he's not. He averaged 291 total bases a season over a full decade. That's real production. Yes, he's a singles hitter, but this is incredible volume. In fact, I don't think our standard OPS plus and WAR stats do justice to this man's game. Ichiro came into the major leagues at a time when walks, plate discipline, and home runs had taken over the sport. And Ichiro had his own game from his own culture. Slashing, batting average, forcing errors, speed, defense. What he did was rare, and rare means valuable. Just one example. In 2006, Ichiro led the league in a stat called bases taken. That's bases taken on passed balls or wild pitches. He was second in the league in reaching base on an error. He also stole 45 bases, got caught just twice. Ichiro was always pressing the advantage, gaining extra bases, while he limited extra bases with his arm in right field. And he did so while almost never missing a game for 10 years. In that decade, Ichiro had the most hits in the majors and was 6th in total bases. In terms of overall volume, that's a power hitter. And the total game, which I don't believe fully captures what he did on the field, only Albert Pujols and A-Rod had a higher WAR than Ichiro. He played his own game, and he played it beautifully. This man tonight, a trailblazer, an original, takes his place as a Hall of Famer. Back with our full crew here, Jason Stark. Yes, I said it. I don't think OPS Plus and WAR fully capture what this player does. You know who I thought about? Because I'm not married to the metrics. I just want some objective methodology. But you think of Luis Arraez's value. In this day and age, a batting average contact guy who is a very difficult at bat in an age where we're still in the 3 true outcomes. And I think Ichiro was also that player, kind of at the vanguard of that sabermetric play in baseball.
We are undervaluing the ability to get a hit. Am I right?
Right.
I love walks. I love walks. There's nothing like the ability to get a hit. I had a conversation with Joey Votto this year where I was trying to make a case for him that he was better than Tony Gwynn. He said, no, I wasn't. Tony Gwynn actually got hits. And that's Ichiro. He got more hits in the United States and Japan than anyone who has ever played baseball. You just did the math, right? This is the combination of Japan and the major leagues. And we've got a guy with 4,300 hits, 2,000 runs scored, 700 stolen bases. It's like Ricky Henderson meets Ty Cobb. That's the life and times of Ichiro.
And we are to vote, you are to vote, on the players' record in the United States major leagues. There was a time, Joel, where, remember, the debate was, wow, what are we going to do with Ichiro because he has those great years in Japan, but you don't count those, and he's not going to be able to put up Hall of Fame totals in his major league career. He eventually did that, so we don't have to discuss it, but there was that thought for a while.
Yeah, but the way he played here, I kind of count the Japanese numbers. Like, they're totally legitimate to me. He did the same thing here that he did there.
Yeah, in retrospect,
if you want to say, like, here he was kind of Lou Brock. If we do it all together, he's Ty Cobb.
Yeah.
You know, like, both of them are Hall of Famers. I'm good with it. And I just want to say this when it comes to, like, what his WAR is or his OPS Plus. This is going to be probably a theme of mine throughout the day, and I think about it all the time. I've done your show tons of times, so, you know, I have nothing but respect for the metrics. I use them. But, like, the writers vote because we're at the games, and we talk to people at the games. Like, this is one of the reasons we vote. It's like, it's Ichiro Suzuki. Like, people in his time didn't care about OPS Plus or their only singles. It's like, how do we stop him from destroying the game if we're the opponent?
Right.
I remember being at a ballpark. He, like, changed the geometry of the game. You know, like, a ball was hitting the gap, and you kind of play that game of, I'm watching the ball. I know what it takes to get a double or a triple. And he was sliding into third base. And I was like, how was that possible? He was like a myth. And I just think if we get kind of locked up in what his OPS Plus is, we miss that it's Ichiro Suzuki.
Right.
It's such an obvious Hall of Famer. Like, to get caught up in anything else, it seems ludicrous to me.
I agree with you, and if I may, like, the most recent example we have of baseball, Major League Baseball in the field was what, JP? The Dodgers doing baseball-y things and wiping out the Yankees, who could crush the ball left and right. Sure. But I think of Mookie Betts in right field, just cutting off a ball to the gap, and it keeps the guy to a single. But then there's Soto in right field, and suddenly a single is a double, and a double is a triple. And these are the things we're talking about, that Ichiro limited those bases and took extra bases. And I think that can go a little beyond the quantification.
Sure, and let's think about that Dodger team and Shohei Ohtani. I've had multiple people who follow the Japanese game closely tell me, without Ichiro, there is not Ohtani in the way that we see him now. Ichiro changed the perception, as you documented in the essay, BK, about the way that American baseball people viewed Japanese position players.
That was a debate at the time. It's like, hey, can this guy actually play in the U.S.?
Correct.
We don't think so. Right.
We had seen Nomo, but we had not seen a position player every day. Ichiro changed the way that American baseball people viewed Japanese talent. And Joel and Jason, you know this too, talking about being in the clubhouses, when players would come back from the All-Star game, question one might be, what was the experience like? Question two, what was it like to be Ichiro's teammate, and how was his speech in the American League clubhouse pregame? Yeah. Because we know that was one of the more iconic Ichiro moments. A final one I'm going to mention before I throw it back to you. I was in Japan in November, Premier 12 tournament, meeting the scouts in Asia, talking with them. I met one scout, his first name, Ichiro. He was named after Ichiro. That just gives you a sense of the magnitude of the man in the Pacific.
Can I just very quickly, just to appreciate, because we talked about him starting his career at 27. He started his career at roughly the age that Yordan Alvarez is now, that Ronald Acuna Jr. is now, and still got 3,000 hits and 500 steals.
Right.
Like, imagine if, like, Ronald Acuna was starting his career now. That's what Ichiro did in the major leagues.
Yeah, and I didn't even, until I did, here's oldest players to have their first major league hit that are in the Hall of Fame.
The record was 23. He beat it by 4 years.
To reach 3,000. That was the math. And we all thought he might not get 3,000. Oh, yeah, he did. Look at that, 27 years old.
I didn't do a lot of research into Ichiro because I didn't have to. In the Hall of Fame, it was like Adrian Beltre last year. Only at the end, so I should probably do a little essay on Adrian Beltre. And I have to say, those first 10 years, those numbers are mind-blowing. Like 224 hits per season for 10 years. The impact of that, not missing, playing 159 games a season. Think of the value of that. Like if that guy was playing today. Anyway, take a short break. These guys have the actual balance.
イチロー、鈴木、その名を聞くだけで心が高鳴る彼のバッティングフォーム、スピード、そしてプレースタイルはただの記録ではなく、私たちに野球の美しさを教えてくれたイチローがいなければ、今の MLB は違っていただろうという言葉は決して誇張ではない。彼は日本からやってきた最初の野手として、誰もが無理だといった壁を破り、MLB の舞台で堂々と輝いたアメリカのファンにとっては伝説のヒットメーカーであり、日本のファンにとっては永遠の誇りであり、MLB 全体にとっては時代を超えるスーパースターだったイチローが27歳で MLB デビューを果たしたとき、すでに日本で7回の首位打者、3回の MVP を獲得していた。しかし、アメリカでの成功を疑う声も少なくなかった。日本での成績は通用しない。体格的にメジャーでは厳しい。そんな声を彼は静かにしかし確実に打ち砕いていった。 MLB 初年度、彼は打率3割5分を記録し、116勝を挙げたマリナーズのリードオフマンとしてリーグを席巻した。2004年には打率3割7分2厘を記録し、MLB のシーズン最多安打記録である162本を更新。その後の10年間で毎年平均して224本のヒット、打率3割3分1厘、38盗塁を達成した。彼のスタイルについて、シングルヒッターだから価値が低いという意見もあったが、実際には彼のプレーは MLB のルールそのものを変えたと言っても過言ではない。OPS や WAR といった指標では測れない唯一無二の選手だった。彼はヒットを打ち、塁に出て相手の隙を突き、守備では圧倒的なスローイングで走者の進塁を阻止した。まるで芸術のようなプレーだった。イチローがいなければ今の大谷翔平は存在しなかったかもしれない。彼がいたからこそアメリカのスカウトやファンが日本の野球選手は本物だと確信することができた。彼の影響力は日本国内にとどまらず、アメリカ、そして世界中の野球文化に変革をもたらした。日本人野手が MLB で活躍できることを証明し、ヒットメーカーの新たな価値を再定義し、イチロー世代と呼ばれる新たな野球ファンを生み出した。彼の試合を見た子供たちがイチローみたいになりたいと憧れ、バットを手にした。日本では彼の名前を持つ子供が誕生し、今もイチローのような選手になりたいと語る若手が 続出している。イチローは、ただ優れた野球選手だったわけではない。彼は、野球の本質を体現したプレイヤーだった。そんな彼がついに殿堂入りを果たした。これは単なる一つの栄誉ではなく、野球の歴史に刻まれる新たな1ページだ。そして彼のレガシーはこれからも続く。次の世代の選手たちが彼の足跡をたどり、新たな伝説を生み出していくだろう。イチロー・鈴木はただのプレイヤーではない。彼は野球の象徴だ。そして彼の物語はこれからも私たちの心の中で輝き続ける。イチローの殿堂入りを記念して皆さんにもぜひ聞きたい。あなたが一番印象に残っているイチローのプレーは何だろうか。彼に影響を受けた瞬間はどんな時だっただろうか。ぜひコメント欄で教えてほしい。このチャンネルではこれからも野球の歴史を振り返りながら伝説のプレイヤーたちの物語をお届けする。もしまだチャンネル登録していない方はぜひ今のうちに登録してほしい。イチローのレガシーをみんなで語り合おう。次回の動画も楽しみにしてほしい。